I'll try my level best. Yeah, Your Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, I have a brief write-up which I want to lay on the table. And then I will just highlight a few areas. So I also have copies for members. Okay. Yes, Honorable Chair, I'll be very brief and look at clause by clause. The general areas I'll give a just a general comment. Specifically, Honorable Chair, we are concerned with what the mover referred to under 1.0 objective of the bill. We believe he's blowing both hot and cold by recognizing the principle of democracy that there must be a leader of opposition by a party with a numerical strength, at the same time subjecting the party's will to election by members of parliament of opposition parties. So I think he should have really considered that this determination of leader of opposition has to be by the party, and that is really positive. At the same time, it now is subjecting this will and discretion to an election of members of parliament of what refers as to opposition. And under our 2.0, when we talked about the defects in the existing legislation, I think his view is misconceived and poor interpretation of the law. Because if you look at Article 82A and Section 8 of the Act, the wording opposition does not exist. It's my submission that it's a misnomer to talk about opposition. It does not exist under our law. You have opposition parties. So conscripting all opposition parties as opposition, that has never been the spirit of the law. And we invite this committee to look at the debates. When Parliament was amending the Constitution to create 82A and the Act itself. So, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, if you look at the Act, the definition of opposition, it does not talk about opposition parties. It talks about the party in opposition. So, to say there is opposition, that has been a very big mistake. We are parties in opposition. Why? We have separate manifestos. We come here differently. We actually elected different as FDC, but not as opposition. So now, this amendment, you don't have to amend because the law is clear. It's talking about the party in opposition, meaning the party with the second numerical strength is the party in opposition. It should appoint the LoP. Why? Because they have the alternative policy, and they should really be the ones doing the checks. You not now call all the other parties because there is no forum for you to do that. And this can be really seen when you look at the debates creating the office of leader of opposition, and also the debates in the Act operationalizing the constitutional provision. That is the first point. And we have specified these arguments under 2.0 up to 2.4. Honorable Chair, the other point we wanted to talk about, I think, which has been highlighted by my party in the party paper presented here, and submission by the President, that specifically this was not meant to create some bit of representation of members of parliament and a discussion forum. It was actually meant to ensure that alternative policy outside parliament is coordinated by a leader in parliament, specifically to keep government in check. And if you look at section 6E of the Act, and again 6.4, specifically it is clear. it is not giving this mandate to opposition political parties. It is actually creating alternative government in parliament. And that cannot be vested in a person who is appointed, what Honorable Lumu talked about, democratically by all these other political parties. Then, Honorable Chair, under 2.4, I observe that the issue of representation cannot be implemented without confusion or disruption. We are all members of Parliament. Honorable Chair, I worked in a bank for quite some time and a group of companies from the age of 24, about 8 companies. I've taught law for over 27 years. I've been in private practice for over 30, but I've never worked in a difficult and challenging institution like a parliament. I've never. I came here when I was 81 kilograms without anything, not sickness. Within 6 months, I deteriorated to 64. And it's still going down. So, talking about, you see, electing a leader of opposition by political parties, it is going to cause disruption. In the entire, this institution is not very easy. It is so
you know, Chair, it is not that a senior colleague is going down and is deteriorating. Are we proceeding right? I don't know whether in the current state that is in, whether we are proceeding right. That is.
What do you think?
If we're going down, are we safe? Actually, the state that would come in dispute will only be mental. And he has not
what I'm saying, Honorable Chair and Honorable members, really subjecting election of such an important leader who is supposed to now pass on government, alternative government policy and do all the checks in the hands of different political parties with different manifestos, actually with different challenges. They have even their own political issues internally. So I think that is going to cause more confusion in Parliament. And it is our submission that actually the leader of opposition should be by the party with the second numerical strength. Having made that point, I just want to note, we also independence. Now, if you go with this kind of argument and justification as Honorable Lumu is talking about, then you also have independence. Actually, now independents are more than other political parties. So I think the idea has nothing to do with representation. In fact, when you look at this act, if you have issues, it goes to your whips. And the law is very clear. Each party has whips. If you have now matters at that level, then you harmonize your positions in the different parties through your whips. I'm a whip myself. It is a weak office, but the weakness is the administrative. And that can be handled without legislating and conscripting all parties as opposition. No, it is impossible. Personally, I came here as FDC. You cannot conscript me as opposition to have common positions under opposition when the law did not envisage this. Then, Honorable Chair, we made comments on page 3 about clause 3, 4, and 4B. I think the same arguments request that should be adopted, mutatis mutandis. Then, Honorable Chair, because I just have a few minutes, we made bullet forms from page 4 up to 7. They're just 7 pages. I just want to talk about summarily about those bullet points. Our general concerns about the bill, the law or the constitution envisage a coalition government. So what if one or two parties now entered into an arrangement with the government? Do we now look at those people as eligible electoral college members to sit and appoint a leader of opposition. We've just had Honorable Mao here. I don't know whether he's cohabiting, already married to the but in such a situation now, if you have now a member, with all due respect, because he's now a member of the opposition, with the powers to appoint a leader of opposition, but you don't know whether he's cohabiting or really married. So in such a situation, you have individuals cohabiting with the government, or those who are actually married to government, all those who have entered into a coalition under Article 69. What happens in such a situation? Then we also have a situation where issues of party discipline. In a multi-party dispensation, if the leader of opposition is not really behaving or not yet towing but agreeing with the party position, then you have a problem, a very big one. And you say, no, you have no control over me. I was elected by members of parliament. It really is quite different, because now if the chief whip or the leader of government business, the prime minister, is indisciplined, the president can easily say, I've reshuffled. So here, now the mandate is with the parliament, and you have no control. So it is a big problem also which you have to look at. Then, Mr. Honorable Chair, under our clause 6 on page 4, there are circumstances where they have the minority of the minority who may not agree with the majority of the minority. So within the minority parties, or on the opposition, as we call it generally, they may not agree with the majority party. I'll give an example. Now LoP is the majority of the minority. But then you have a party like JMA with one MP. It is in the minority. So you find that entire group of the minority, you understand what I'm talking about? The minority of the minority now disagreeing with the majority of the minority. It's a problem. You find now LoP is in charge, is the majority of the minority, but then you find a grouping of other parties, the minority of the minority, now controlling the majority of the minority. So it doesn't really make sense legally. And now you are legislating to give powers to parties which you are really representing the minority of the minority to control the majority of the minority. So there's here a very big problem. Then we were not consulted. That is another problem, even as whips. Actually, Honorable Lumu is the de facto whip of what? Of DP. But even at our level, informally, Honorable Lumu has never talked to us. So we really are wondering what is the genesis and the purpose of this bill. You know, he's now stampeding the bill as if he's representing and protecting opposition, but he has never had the courtesy of even talking to us. And he's the de facto, actually, he's the de facto whip of DP, with all due respect. So I think that one we cannot associate with a bill where there was no consultation. Then, Honorable Chair, I think I'm about, because I have other, the bill goes against wealth. We cited UK, Ghana, India, Tanzania, and Kenya, South Africa, where the party having the greatest numerical strength designates a leader. There's no constitutional provision creating opposition, so to conscript all opposition parties as opposition, it is it's not even proper, and it's not practical. At our level, we can consult as politicians, but we should not be conscripted as opposition because it's not workable. And then we suggest that the party with the second numerical strength should be given the power to designate. We should not undermine the strength of such political party, and we should not delink the leadership there from parliamentary control by such a legislation. That's my sort of meat, but given the time constraints, I'm very grateful. I lay on table my presentation. I pray that you consider our views as FDC and give our views. It has not been easy to harmonize the leadership, the membership here, and ensuring that we move together. But Alhamdulillah, I hope everything will go on well.
Such an elaborate presentation, and surely one thing which comes to mind is that we are doing this also as a committee. We can't reject something which has been brought to the committee. We process with all fairness. But I don't know what would be I'm happy of giving your suggestion that you would still suggest that it's proper to toe the line of designation by the majority opposition party, if I may call, with the second, the highest majority, second. But I don't know how you would be able to, if you looked at Article 82A, sub-Article 2, where it actually gives the leeway to Parliament to take a decision on how the mode of operation, you get the mode operandi, how we can be able to operationalize that provision of the Constitution, how the leader of opposition should be chosen. I don't know how you can manage up with it, because when I look at chosen, designation can be one of the forms, but it gives the leeway to Parliament to take that decision, which I think it's not offensive on our side. What would be your take on that?
Chair, as I had also declared my conflict of it, but just to thank.
Your reading of Article 82A of the Constitution, does it strictly relate party with the second highest number of votes only? And two, other than a coalition under Article 69, sub-Article 2C, what do you take of the current status where you find a member of UPC is in the cabinet, a member of DP is in the cabinet? What is the legal status of those members?
Honorable Bosco, of course, raised something novel, but when you look at the debates of the constitutional amendment by the second parliament and even the parliamentary amendment of the act, the spirit really looked at the party with the second numerical strength. It was really meant to ensure that alternative policy can be debated in Parliament in a coordinated manner. It must be presented by a person who has some bit of authority, ostensible from the party. So basically, if you're talking of an amendment now, you cannot do away with that spirit of a constitutional provision, because that would be unconstitutional. Then the other point raised by Honorable Nwagaba, of course, it is a big problem. Personally, I believe without a coalition government, members who are in this government as ministers from different parties, the opposition parties, their appointment was irregular and void. It is clear. You see, you cannot talk about now a party entering into a memorandum and separate, because the party does not belong to the leadership. It's an institution. It's an institution. That's why it is funded by the state. So you cannot come here and individually and you talk and you get positions. That will be now an infringement. Unless maybe you go through your parties in a proper organ like a national delegates conference or something, and you are really designated and even approve those so-called agreements which you are doing clandestinely as individuals. Otherwise, the party does not belong to you. It is an organ. And that's why actually they say parties must have a constitution, must have this, you must have regular meetings, meaning you must give the parties that to get the will and direction of the people. The directing mind and will should not be reflected in individuals, but it must be reflected in organs. Then, point on our governance. Okay.
Okay, so you can now.
Chair, I think as political parties in opposition, not as opposition, we should really respect the will of the people as reflected in our democratic elections. So if a party with a second numerical strength is not given the discretion and power to appoint a leader of opposition, and also to appoint the leadership like shadow cabinet, and also to appoint commissioners representing that party, and you subject this to Parliament, whether under the control of presiding officers, like what is happening now, this is going to be disastrous. No one is going to benefit, because the purpose of the party in opposition, or what you call opposition, is to create checks and balances. And these checks must be controlled by the political will outside the Parliament. Like the president is controlling the NRM, which is the ruling party in power, by appointing cabinet, by reshuffling cabinet. So we should not interfere with the power of this party with the numerical strength to determine and control leadership on matters of policy in Parliament.
In the deliberations of this committee, as because I'm not a member, but I want to learn from my senior colleague.
Once admitted, you now have all the rights.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Now, because we are handling the Administration of Parliament Act, and we have occasions where the opposition has submitted its position of redesignating members, for example, the commissioner, the chairpersons and deputies of the committee, and the rules are very clear. You can redesignate at any time. A party makes a submission through its whip and the LoP to the floor of Parliament, but these members are held to those positions by the Speaker. So these are the issues that we want to put, we want to bring out clearly. This is a committee on parliamentary and legal affairs, but these matters are keeping on happening, but no one is talking about them. So the fact that we are looking at the Administration of Parliament Act, some of these issues must also come out if you are looking at amendments.
One concern. At the very onset, when we started considering this bill, I remember it had there were additional clauses. We were supposed to have had a reprint. So I want to be guided by you, Chair, whether we subsequently dropped those other, because I look at the presentation even of my senior is strictly on one particular aspect. Yet the
as we are connecting direct to the next stakeholders who are already here. So can I invite the leader of the delegation to take up the first seat?